Just got done putting some new shocks on this. So there's the new ones. Here's the old ones. These ones are supposed to have oil in them. These were the factory ones, just springs. Really, really stiff and springy too. So these ones should really be nice, man. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna swap these headlights out of here because I'm gonna park this body for a while. And I'm gonna put the headlights in here because I don't have any in here. So get that swap done, and then I'm gonna take these yellow rims off and throw on the orange ones. So yeah, so now I'm gonna try to swap those lights and change these wheels. I'm gonna put the battery in after that, and then that'll be it. Be ready to go for tomorrow.
Widely regarded as a leading UFO expert, Major Kehoe is a proponent of various theories explaining UFOs, government cover-ups, and the threat of interplanetary war.
Major Kehoe, as an authority on flying saucers, do you yourself believe that they exist?
Well, I'm positive they exist. The weight of the evidence makes it impossible to arrive at any other conclusion.
What tangible evidence do you have?
Well, at least 800 reports from trained observers, veteran pilots, radar men, guided missile trackers, Weather Bureau observers, all people who are trained to know things in the sky. Describe these objects looming under those reports, where the sightings were confirmed visually by radar and in some cases by photograph.
These headlights.
Evolution.
I gotta peel this plastic off now too.
In the United States. In the 40s and into the 50s, the government was primarily concerned with the panic. They wanted to be able to control the reaction of the public. There was an official government policy to ridicule and debunk and really make the witnesses feel as if they are the fringe, they are the crazy ones, and they don't deserve any merit because people really aren't seeing these things. So when the Hill incident happens, it's among all of this frenzy of UFO activity, but yet people don't know how to feel about it.
Curious to know more about her own experience, Betty writes to Major Kehoe. She has begun what will become a lifelong search for the truth. What she finds will shock the world. Located an hour north of Boston, Portsmouth is New Hampshire's oldest settlement and only seaport. In addition to its historic importance, by the 1960s, the city and surrounding area had become noted for its fishing industry, strategic military importance, and beautiful beaches.
Betty was a child welfare worker for the state of New Hampshire. She cared for other people. She cared for children who were being abused by their parents, or children who were being neglected. And then she worked in adoption. She was eventually promoted to the position of supervisor.
She had an opinion on everything. She loved to express it, and if you took her on and you battled her about it, she was even happier. She wanted to be part of the world.
There we go.
Betty met Barney at Hampton Beach, New Hampshire, which was very close to her home in Portsmouth.
This one right here, my son right there,
working during the
my
summers
Charlie right there, you
sometimes.
can see me and the wife right there.
Betty had friends in Portsmouth, and they knew Barney, so they met, and she said to Barney, well, I have an apartment that I rent to tourists, and if you and your family ever come up here again, I'd be happy to rent it to you. So it was sort of a congenial relationship. Barney was highly intelligent. His IQ was 140. He wanted to go to college to become an engineer, but he was told that that was not something that he would ever be able to do because of the color of his skin. He ended up joining the army before the outbreak of World War II. He was a marksman, he was a truck driver, and he ended up being wounded. He then was able to get a job at the post office, and he worked for the U.S. Post Office for many years. He married, he had 2 sons, but he and his wife divorced. So this is when he began a relationship with Betty.
Barney eventually moves to Portsmouth. And after dating for a few years, he and Betty marry.
They were one of the few mixed marriages in Portsmouth, although Portsmouth this time, there was fairly large African-American population. But you don't want to think of Portsmouth, or pretty much any New England town, as being a northern town without racism. I mean, systemic racism is the name of the game, as much through New England, really, as the South. Barney was one of the people fighting this with Betty. He was an activist, NAACP. He was doing what he could to bring this to light, always leading to the idea that to come out as an abductee of aliens was a huge risk on his part. And he was very concerned about his personality and how he was seen by other people. So this was a massive risk to him, which I think leads to the idea of how much he and Betty's story is actually a love story.
But little do they know the UFO incident is not over and will continue to haunt them. 10 days after their encounter in the White Mountains, Betty suffers a series of vivid dreams that last over 5 nights.
In her dreams, there was an encounter with very human-like entities. They surrounded the car, and then they took Betty and Barney onto the craft where they did highly unusual physical examination.
In this rare interview from 1968, Betty describes what happened on board the alien craft.
First, they took Barney into one room, and I went into a second room. In this room, they did what I would call a fairly simple physical examination. They seemed to have mostly interest in my skin. I had the idea they were taking pictures of my skin. Also, interest in my hands and my feet. They also did a test which they called checking my nervous system. Throughout the whole examination, it would be like picking up some kind of a strange animal and looking it over, giving it a checkup and putting it back down again, without any intentions of harming it.
The vivid nature of the dreams, along with the strange buzzing sounds, are too much for Betty to simply dismiss.
She was wondering if this somehow represented reality. Now, she was a social worker. She had studied psychology, and dreams that you have just before you wake up in the morning when you're sort of in a hypnotic state can include information that really occurred, yet there can be fantasy added. Betty initially jotted her dreams down on notepaper, and she couldn't forget about them. And she spoke to her supervisor, who said to her, maybe this represents what really happened to you between those buzzing sounds. And maybe this is what happened during that period that you can't remember. So Betty sat down and she typed those dreams out.
Betty knows she and Barney saw something that night. But what? What about those buzzing sounds? Why did the car have those strange, shiny spots? Could her nightmares be true?
delicious news. Carl's Jr. and Hardee's are offering charbroiled double deals starting at $2.99 each.
Bite into these double deals starting at $2.99 each at Carl's Jr. and Hardee's.
What's missing? Plot twist. Let's run it again. Zendaya, how do you always keep it so fresh? Whatever the choice, just keep it smart.
Uh-oh, you heard a screech outside at night. Well, you can't see what it is because there's not enough light. You need the bionic floodlight from Bell & Howell, the solar-powered, motion-activated, multi-directional floodlight that showers a super span of light right where you need it. Simply sneak it in the yard or mount it anywhere around your home. The onboard solar panel absorbs the sun all day to energize a flood of light at night. No wires or installation frustration.
There we go.
The instant motion is detected.
Sweet.
The bionic floodlight triggers 108 high-intensity LED bulbs on 3 separate
There we
panels.
go. We got the lights in there.
An area of over 1,000 square feet with bright, penetrating
Sweet.
light. Then automatically shuts off after the motion stops. Each panel is fully adjustable.
Alright, so
to
now I'm
direct
just
the right
gonna
light to the right spot. The
put the
bionic floodlight
battery
is
in and put the body back on.
wireless, safety, security,
And change the
outdoor
rims.
lifestyle light you'll love. And it's from Bell & Howell. The
Pause it
brand
real
your
quick.
family is trusted for over
What happened? They were consistent
Alright,
in
picked
their
up a
details.
lot of these little screws and
because
stuff.
He interviewed
One of
them
these
separately
things.
before he interviewed them together.
Let's get the
And so
rims changed.
everything meshed. He thought that they were reliable, intelligent individuals with no reason to want to make something like this up.
The scientific community, at least those who are interested in the subject, took note that we have some very credible witnesses here. They're in high standing in society. They have a lot to lose. And so, given the credibility of it, it's kind of one of the first times that many of them had taken note that we should listen to the alleged abductees.
A few weeks later, when another set of investigators question the hills, they make a startling revelation.
We must have spent about 12 hours going over this great test when they came up with the idea that we realized that from the time we left Holbrook and the time we arrived at Portsmouth was close to 6 hours and 4 hours, which it should have taken. We hadn't really realized it.
What happened during those 2 hours of missing time?
It was obvious that people that suffered amnesia at Indian Head, it's highly improbable for 2 people to suffer amnesia at the same time.
Imagine you're Betty and Barney, you've seen this UFO, you've seen these creatures, and then you begin to realize that there's a couple hours that are unaccounted for. They started to get an inkling that maybe there was more to that 2-hour period than had first met the eye.
Could Betty's dreams be nightmares of something real? Is it possible they were abducted by aliens during the missing time? Betty and Barney decide to investigate further.
Shortly after Betty and Barney met with Homan and Jackson, they made trips up to the White Mountains. They were attempting to remember more, to jog their memories of what had occurred. In Betty's dreams, she remembered a huge fiery orb that seemed to be sitting on the ground of a roadblock, but she didn't know where or when that occurred, of a dirt road with tall trees all around, and this was very perplexing.
The whole experience, from the days, the months, and the years after the event, took a major toll on their relationship. Betty wanted to understand this and to unlock the secrets, if you will, of everything that happened. What were the events that were haunting her? Barney wanted to keep quiet. He didn't want it to affect their public life and his standing in the civil rights movements and everything that they were involved in.
Barney was still attempting to forget about it, but he couldn't. It was really eating away at him and was deeply troubling.
Concerned over a worsening ulcer, Barney visits a psychiatrist, hoping to find relief.
I one day mentioned to him how Betty and I had seen a UFO. As we thought of it, well, it looked as if we both had amnesia at the same time because he and I told him in briefly with what we know. So he recognized that this was possibly the cause of my ulcer. He recommended a psychiatrist in Boston, Dr. Benjamin Simon, a very qualified, prominent psychiatrist. Well, I say qualified to regret one back years of use of hypnotherapy.